Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Goon. If you're new to Womenpreneur Asia, I hope you will appreciate this season's episodes. Each season, you will hear stories and journeys of Asian women entrepreneurs from India to Japan who are open enough to talk about their businesses. These are real conversations with everyday women in business across Asia, and each episode is brought to you by Redbox Studio. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. You're like an old friend to me as we traverse this journey of uncovering even more spectacular stories from Asian women in business. But before we get into the new season next Friday, I have been having some really delightful and perspective-changing conversations with this season's guests. I call them perspective-changing because they will challenge you to review and revisit your assumptions about business. For instance, must all businesses be about growth? What about scaling back because you needed to prioritize your lifestyle? Or on the other hand, what about the idea of thinking big right from the get-go? Must business transition from small to big? Or can you go big immediately if you know the right resources to tap into? Two very contrarian viewpoints, right? And that's the beauty of business and entrepreneurship. You decide what you want to do. You can wake up today and decide to completely transform your business, and that's okay. So this season is like that. A little bit unusual, a little bit of a mind puzzle, all wrapped up around some thought-provoking conversations and stories that I hope you will appreciate. I started with a mission to share stories of Asian women entrepreneurs in Asia because I realized there is a space for our stories. I know there are stories of Asian business owners, but I was confident I could bring my unique perspective as a woman in business, as a peer in the conversation, because I understood the trials and tribulations of a business, and yet I come to the conversation as a wide-eyed student on a discovery process. Each conversation is wrapped in honesty, and I hope I have been able to draw this out from each of my guests. And I've been blessed that my guests have all entrusted me to do this with them. And here's what's bizarre. No matter how accomplished or successful my guests are, many will often ask if their stories are good enough. Every woman that I have had conversations with, regardless of how big or small her business, is essentially the same. We are all looking to create something meaningful in our lives through our businesses. So yes, I tell them, all our stories are good enough. We just need the right focus and angle to bring the right story out to the open. Is it an easy job? Not really. But here's what I do before I hit the record button. I have a pre-interview call with each guest. In my pre-interview call, I make sure I make the guests feel at ease. Many have been recommended to me via my previous guests, and we spend some time getting to know each other. I explain why I have a podcast, and my guest tells me her story. And from this conversation, I have a much better idea when I craft my questions. And then I give her a choice. I don't presume that every woman I speak to will at the end want to get on my podcast. I've had women who turned down the invitation because they were not ready to share their stories with the world. And I understand this. It's not easy opening up and having your story live online for anyone to listen to if you're not comfortable with discomfort and vulnerability. Because I do encourage my guests to open up. This is where I believe Womenpreneur Asia can be its best unique self. Candid conversations and creative transformations. That's my hope each time I start recording. And of course, real women with real stories. At times, I bring my guest on a nostalgic trip, and she ends up telling me my episode was like therapy. Inspiration aside, one piece of advice or one strategy can change your life. I remember reading a book featuring Helen Reid, the founder of Miss Reid, a Malaysian fashion brand for women, and she said that we should all leave the bathroom cleaner than we found it. Here's a woman who, instead of complaining about the dirty public bathrooms, has chosen to take responsibility and make a small yet important difference for the next user of the bathroom. In her advice is care, consideration, and thoughtfulness. And if you have heard my interview on the Can Do Way podcast with Gail Gibson, I talk about the principle of triple win. You have heard about win-win, but have you heard about win, win, and win? This principle has helped me to reframe how I think and talk about opportunities and resources. In all the work that I do, whether it is on the boards that I volunteer with, the projects I'm part of, or the business that I co-own, I begin with asking if I can have a win for me, a win for the other person, and a win for the world at large. This podcast itself works on the triple win principle. The first win is that I get to meet amazing women across Asia, each with her story to tell. The second win is that she gets the limelight, and this is the reason why I focus on women who aren't celebrities, just everyday hardworking women like you and me. And the third win is a win for you, the listener who learns, finds hope, inspiration, and courage, and realize that we are all humans who are looking for connection and meaning through our collective stories and experiences. I would love to hear from you, so if you could reach out to me on my website, womenprenneurasia.com, and of course to get updates, sign up for my mailing list right on the website itself. And thank you for listening to Womenpreneur Asia. I hope I've given you an insight of what's coming, a little bit of a teaser of what's coming up for season 4, and at the same time given you a little insight on how I create my recordings and make my guests feel at ease and enabling them to tell their best stories in every episode. And I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next episode.